Number 230. The value of this fancy expression is how many times more than this other one. And this other one is basically 2 to the negative 17th. So that's this times x equals this fancy expression. Divide both sides by 2 to the negative 17th. That's the same as multiplying this by 2 to the negative 17th. Since this is negative, you could just bring it to the top, and we'll have 2 to the positive 17th times 2 to the negative 14th plus 2 to the negative 15th plus 2 to the negative 16th plus 2 to the negative 17th. Of course, all of this is divided by 5. X equals, keep the base, add the exponents, 2 to the third plus 2 to the second plus 2 to the first plus 2 to the 0th power. That, of course, is divided by 5. And so that's basically 8 plus 4 plus 2 plus 1. And that's 15 over 5. X equals 3. So x equals 3 is what we're looking for, and that is answer choice C. Okay, so let's look at what happened. So basically they told us this expression right here, right? This 2 to the negative 17th is how many times more x than this original expression. Now, since we have a negative exponent, we have to divide both sides by 2 to the negative 17. We have to divide both sides by this highlighted area. So then that's the same as, since this is already a division, that's the same as adding it or multiplying it really by that same factor. So multiplying it by 2 to the negative 17th. Now, of course, we don't like to deal with negative exponents, so the easiest way to deal with this is to move it to the top. Remember, we have the identity that 2 to the negative power, anything to the negative power, is the same as 1 divided by that same expression, except instead of negative, it's positive. So in this case, having the negative 17th power in the denominator, the bottom part, that's the same as just shifting it to the top part and making it positive. And that's why we went from this negative to this positive here, right? So that's how we made that switch. The switch was basically due to the identity. Anything to the negative power is the same as 1 over x to the n, right? So this expression allowed us to go from here to here. Then everything else just stays the same, right? The top part, this top part stays the same. This part becomes this part, right? It's the same thing. And then you're always dividing by 5, so remember to divide by 5. Then you have to combine the exponents. When you're multiplying things, you keep the base, right? You keep the base, you add the exponents. 17 minus 14, that's 3. 17 minus 15, that's 2. 17 minus 16, that's 1. And 17 minus 17, that's 0. Now you need to know that 2 to the 0 is the same as 1, right? 2 to the first is just 2. 2 to the second is 4. 2 to the third is 8. Add them all together, and that's 12 plus 2 plus 1, that's 15. And you're still dividing by 5, remember? You're still dividing by 5, and then that gets you 15 over 3, and x equals 3. And that's why we ended up with 3. So basically, this expression is 3 times the original 2 to the negative 17th expression. So that's the answer. Answer choice C. So as a recap, we basically have this expression, and we're asked, oh, well, this is, in comparison to this other expression, right? How many times more is it, right? So that you basically have it times x, right? And our job is to find what x is, and to find that, we basically have to divide this expression by that expression. And since this has a negative exponent, well, first we divide it, right? So that's the same as placing it into the bottom, and that is basically the same as doing this to it, right? So this expression, well, how do you deal with this negative exponent? You simply shift it to the top and you make it positive, and then you basically multiply it by all those terms there, and then you divide it by 5. So that's what we did, and it turns out we individually combined this 2 to the 17th with each of the 4 terms here, So what we did was we kept the base, we keep base, and then you add the exponents. So we keep the base, we add the exponents, and that's how we distribute each of these terms, and then you eventually get something like 15 divided by 5, and that gets you answer choice C, which is 3.